Good evening, everyone. It is great to be on here again. Today, I wanted to talk about a very personal, an extremely personal.
I didn't get that.
Oh, Siri wants to talk to me too. Anyway, a very personal subject in my life. And this is about my 5 angel babies. At one point in my life, I could not have talked about this at all, and particularly not online. But it's because I have 5 angel babies that I am strong enough to be online and to talk about what happened and how I became to have 5 angel babies. It's as overwhelming to me today as it was back when this all happened. So, to fill you in a little bit, I'm in a online video challenge, and today's topic was to share something very personal. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to this. So that is why I am sharing about my 5 angel babies here tonight. If you have not met me before, my name is Anna Olson. I am a coach and mentor teaching small business owners how to use social media to grow their teams and their business. If you are joining me live, please say hello. Tell me where you're coming in from and join the conversation. I would love to hear from you as we go along here. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay and I will come back and say hello in the next day or so, or whenever you do watch the replay. So as I said, tonight I wanted to talk about my 5 angel babies. And it's still very overwhelming that I can say that I lost 5 babies. I have 2 healthy children. My son is 22 or going to be 22 this summer. He just graduated from college and he is off on his first job. And him and his girlfriend moved to another town and they've started their new job together, managing a store for a business owner. So it's very exciting for him to be doing that. And then our daughter is 17. She is a junior in high school. And so I'll talk about that as how they fit into with the other 5. So when I was pretty young, I lost my first one. And that was probably the biggest impact. It had the most impact in my life all around. It was a time in my life where I had no confidence in myself. I had nobody to talk to. I had no confidence in anyone. I didn't even trust my own mother. And I maybe should have trusted my mother. I don't know that, but I didn't feel that I could at the time. And I just had a lot of fear in my life. I was pretty young. So I lost one then. And I moved on. Some years later, after I was married, we had our son. 3 years after we were married, we had our son. And when he was 1.5 years old, we had talked about having more children. We had kind of talked about 4. We wanted 4 children. Well, he was 1.5 years. I got pregnant. Things were going fine. And all of a sudden, I lost the baby. And I didn't know what was happening. And I've thought of this many times, if only I knew then what I know now, it might not have happened that way. But I do believe that this was what God wanted. Things happened exactly the way that God wanted. I'm a true believer in that things happen for a reason. Things happen the way that they're supposed to. And it's not always what we want, but it's there for a reason. So I lost the first one. I think it was August. And the next one after that was another miscarriage in February of the next year. And again, the doctors had no had no, they couldn't tell me what was happening and how I could make things different. It's kind of crazy, but the insurance, they told me through my insurance, they would not pay for extensive testing until I had lost 3 in a row. And so it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So we didn't do the testing because they didn't pay for it. So after the second miscarriage in a row, we decided to go ahead and try again. And we did. I got pregnant in June. By June, I knew that I was pregnant. Or no, it was earlier than that in the year. I knew I was pregnant. I got pregnant in March. And then in June, we got the news that I was carrying twins. And I just remember how excited I was to have twins. And we had a doctor appointment at 14 weeks. We had 2 strong heartbeats, and there was no indication that there would be any issue or anything wrong. And then at, I think, if I remember correctly, it was like at 17 weeks, 16 and a half to 17 weeks, I realized that there is that there is an issue. And 17 weeks, I went in to see what the problem is. Actually, what happened, this day is quite surreal to me even today. And this is now 18 years ago. But that morning, I was supposed to take my husband to a hospital to have a hernia surgery. And I realized that there is a problem with the babies. So I called my hospital, which is out the other direction and about an hour from our house. The hospital where my husband was going was about a half hour from our house. Well, anyway, I called my hospital and said to the nurses what I thought was happening and what my concerns were. And they said, "You need to come right away. You need to come right away." And I said, "Well, can I at least take my husband to his surgery? And then as soon as he's done with surgery, I'll come to the hospital." And they're like, no, you need to come right now. So I did. I drove myself an hour to my hospital. My husband drove himself to the hospital for his surgery. And by noon, we both had gone through surgery. And when I got to the hospital that I was going to, they determined that I was already dilated to 6, and our little girl had already died, and they were now trying to save the little boy. We still had a heartbeat on the little boy. Oh my gosh. It was so hard. It was so hard because I couldn't stop. The tears wouldn't stop. I remember I cried most of the day because not only had I lost another 2 babies, but I had also lost the dream of having twins. Yes, I had twins, but we weren't going to have, or at least at that point, we knew that the one had already died. Extremely, extremely tough for me. I was in the hospital for 10 days on absolute flat bed rest, no getting up for anything. And that lasted for 10 days. They had me on IV antibiotics. And they told me, and then they said, "You can go home, but your absolute bed rest, you have to stay bed rest. Absolutely. The only time to get up is to go to the bathroom." That was it. That's the only thing I could do. So I went home, and I was only home for like 3 days. And then I had more concerns. And we went back to the hospital, and they said, "Most likely this isn't going to last very long. If you do go into labor, we have to let it go. Otherwise, you might lose everything. And so I went home on a Monday, and by Thursday, I was back to the hospital. And on Saturday afternoon, all of a sudden, I was having labor pains. And I realized it. And I was alone in the hospital at that moment. My husband had gone home because we had our son at home. He had gone home to see what was happening with him. And I realized a friend of ours was coming to stay with me. And I realized what was happening. It took me, I just stayed in the room quiet, didn't tell the nurses for a couple hours because I realized that I was in labor and that I was going to lose this little boy too. It was now 19 weeks. We were now at 19 weeks. And, but eventually the labor pains had gotten very steady, it came on very steady. So I told the nurses, and then they waited a little bit longer until my husband got there and our friend was there too. And then of course, they gave me the drugs to move along the labor. But again, then the little boy was born at 10:30 that night, late that night. And they did come in and we had a baptism right after he was born. But he wasn't alive when he was born. So we had a little bit of time to spend with him, but I had so many drugs in me. It was really hard to remember exactly how that all happened. And then it was not until, so that was November 1st. And it wasn't until the next day that the little girl was finally born, because it just, with complications and whatever. So it was like 3 a.m. So it was like, I want to say around noon when labor pains started, and I didn't get back to my room till like 3 a.m. the next morning. So yeah, it was a tough one. And now I had lost 5 babies. Then the doctors were ready to do the testing that I needed to see if it was possible for me to have another one. And we did the testing, and what they determined is hormonal imbalance. That's what was happening and why I was miscarrying so much. So then we did some correcting of that, and then we had our daughter a year later. It was quite the experience. And I remember my babies every birthday. One of the healing things that I was asked to do, I went through different programs just to try to heal from all of this loss, that I just felt it was so overwhelming. That feeling of loss was just overwhelming for me. So I went through a couple programs, and one of the programs asked me to, as part of the healing process, is to name the babies and give them a birth date and put them on, put it on paper. Your children, not just the 2 that are alive today, but all of them, and give them a name and give them a birth date. And that's what I did. Here a couple weeks ago, a cousin of mine asked me to fill out a piece of paper. They're going to do a history book. And as most of you know, I grew up in the Amish community, and so they don't have pictures, but they do a history book. And so I filled in our family's information, and so a book will be coming out here probably within the next year. But I was at a funeral where this cousin was also at the funeral here 2 weeks ago. And he came up to me and he said, "You gave me quite the shock." And I'm like, "Why? What?" And he's like, "I never realized you had lost 5. I put their information into the history books." So yeah, and we hadn't done a history book since I had lost so many babies. So that side of the family didn't know, or some of the extended cousins didn't know. So what does that mean for me? I truly feel that it has made me so much stronger. I'm a much stronger person today because I decided to use those losses as a strength for me in my life versus a detriment to me. It also caused me to look for natural ways to heal my body and to stay in balance health wise. So I have been on a journey of staying healthy and finding natural ways to be healthy versus drugs ever since then. Ever since then. So, anyway, don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for me. It is not necessary because I am so much stronger. And I have had a couple of times where I have felt the babies close to me when I needed it. So my angels are around me. They are here. They are watching over mom. So I hope you found this to be inspiring to you, and or at least I hope it's helpful for others. I'm sure there's many that can relate. And that's my story today. I hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to you all again tomorrow. Have a great one.